and everyone rushed. It didn't seem like someone else. People felt like, oh, that's someone else's job to deal with, and that's what it's about. Building community and any type of leadership role in a community is about being of service to people and caring for people and helping nurture people, helping them grow spiritually and emotionally, professionally, and encouraging them and inoculating them against some of the negative things that we bump up against out in real life. So it's obvious where everyone's head and heart is to see the work that's being done over here, and just the response that you had here today. It's just really, it's beautiful and it's encouraging. Tell my story? So we put religion, redemption, and reaching each other. So yeah, I'll share a little bit about my story. As Sheikh Mendez says, I'm from the deep South. Like, I live in North Carolina, and they say that's the South, but it really doesn't feel like the South to me. So I think I'm the first generation of my family to go to an integrated school, and I don't know what I can and can't say, so yeah. Yeah.
This is like Cheers.
It's everybody knows your name.
Yeah. Glad you came.
So, I'm coming from a background where my grandfather taught me how to tie a noose, and I don't think that many people have that experience. Like, that's how people are trying to socialize you. And so I can remember as I started getting to middle school and started interacting with different people, and I met good and bad people of all different shades and backgrounds, right? So that really contradicted what my family was telling me about white people are good, black people are bad. At some point I thought, either I'm crazy or everyone else is crazy, That's what they're telling me doesn't add up. So alhamdulillah, it turned out everyone else was crazy, and I was sane. That in my little sphere of influence, And then over the years, I see people's hearts have softened as the world gets smaller and smaller. But although popular culture can be very detrimental to us spiritually, at the time in the late 80s and early 90s, a lot of the popular music, especially the rap music, was very much about searching for identity and honoring your heritage. And some of this music really spoke to me as I heard the name Malcolm X mentioned. And then I went and I looked into Malcolm X, and I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And then I found what my beliefs were, like what I felt about the universe and other people. I saw mirrored in Brother Malcolm's journey. So it's been a long time. It's been a long journey with a lot of twists and turns, but it's really, I was just talking to someone about this the other day, just the literacy of people about religion. I can remember my grandmother telling me, when I accepted Islam in 1999, she said, honey, it doesn't really matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist or Hindu or Jew. That doesn't matter. All that matters is that you accept Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. It doesn't matter what religion you are. So even in that era, I don't think people really understood what Islam was, and I'd never seen a Muslim that looked like me before. So it really wasn't even on my radar that I could be Muslim. But over time, as you you learn more about the Prophet, peace be upon him, and you interact with people that are modeling his character, peace be upon him, you can change. So a few years before my grandmother passed, she said, I wish that your mother and your brother would accept Islam too. So it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to try to do it, and denying what's out there in the world and not trying to inoculate ourselves and our children from it by these classes that you had going on earlier, and by you caring for each other. We're really in for a lot of trouble if we think we're just going to ignore everything going on out in this world and hang on to our faith. So it's really beautiful. I think that you have someone in a leadership role in your community that understands it's about serving people and caring for people. It's not about people coming and serving you. So I feel really, awkward to be sitting up here talking to you about this because I don't see myself in to be someone that should be sitting up here. But I do love the Muslim community, especially the convert community, and that's where some of my work has been with Southern Hospitality Islamic Center. Is this concept, this dream that I have, trying to create the community that I want to be a part of. So to start being a mentor for new people that are coming into the faith, because a lot of times we bump up against teachings that say we have to throw away everything from our past. But the family values in the Deep South are very similar to a lot of our values. So there's definitely poisonous aspects of that culture, racism and sexism, that Islam has the medicine for, as far as addressing the diseases of the human heart, pride and arrogance. So I've found trying to be wise about dealing with people and speaking to them on those terms about the dangers of pride and arrogance, where people can see in their own life where they've harmed themselves, as opposed to attacking people for their beliefs, but trying to interact with people and try to show them where addressing your pride and your hidden arrogance, it only benefits you, So this is some of what I've been dreaming about, thinking about, because I need this community. Like, I need a community like this where you can come and be nurtured and cared for. And if I haven't been able to find it, I have to go start trying to lay the foundation so we can have discussions like this. And like we brought Sheikh Mendez in last year for our conference, and they all, the college that I work at, we have about 15 Muslim students. So it was 100 students from 10 different colleges all over the country. And they were all wanting you to come back, wanting you to come back next year, because they really connected with you on a heart level, So, okay.
So could you tell us a bit about what led you from your career in prosthetics to chaplaincy, and what has that journey been like for you?
Okay. I don't want to drop this on y'all like this, but so how I got introduced to chaplaincy was through having two of my children pass away. I had daughters, Husna and Nadira, that were conjoined twins. And so I had just kind of plugged into studying with Jamaluddin Haisal in Atlanta. So I just kind of plugged into, we were reading through the Creed of Imam Tahawi, and we were on the chapter where it's talking about, some things happen to you in your life, and you may not always know the reason, but Allah has a wisdom. So it makes me think there's a story about the farmer whose horse runs away, and all the neighbors are saying, "This is horrible. And the farmer's saying, well, we don't, the story's not over yet. We don't know. In the big picture, we don't know if this is good or bad. So then the horse comes back, and there's a wild horse that follows the farmer's horse. So they said, this is great. Now you have 2 horses. And he says, well, we don't know the ultimate, how the story's going to end. So, the story goes back and forth. His son's trying to tame the horse. He falls off, breaks his leg. They say, oh, it's horrible. And he's still just, we have to wait and see. And the army comes through and tries to recruit him. He can't go to the army. They're, oh, it's great. Just wait, So he said, we have to wait and see. We don't know ultimately what's good or bad in the situation. So I think that was really priming me for to have to face sitting there with the ultrasound technician and the doctor saying, we don't think your daughters will live a day or a week or a month. And I realized a few days later that it didn't even pass through my head, why is this happening? So I think before that time I may be more prone to be dramatic about life, But a few days, all that I thought was, well, what can we do to care for these babies while they're here? And beyond that, it's in God's hands. And I trust that there's a reason for everything that happens. And I may never know in this lifetime why that happened. And it's a brutal and beautiful experience at the same time. But so days later, it dawned on me. It never dawned on me, why are you doing this, God? So that's where I met a chaplain in the hospital who came, and they didn't try to cheer us up. The chaplain just came and, just sat with us. And the one question that he did ask, well, he said, do you have any, how can I help you? And the only thing that came to my mind is, how can I explain this to my 3-year-old? And I've learned, as you all know very well from having school here, that you have to speak to them on their level, very much like the prophet, peace be upon him. Try to meet people in their own language and their own level of understanding. So we've had a lot of conversations over the years about my son Adam. We've had a lot of conversations about his sisters, but I think that was very helpful. Someone just coming and sitting and being calm and just sitting there with you. A lot of times when your child's dying, no one can say anything that's going to change that. That's not something that you want to have to deal with. But someone just holding your hand symbolically and walking beside you through the good times and the bad times, it can be very healing. And I think in Arabic it's lisan al-hal. Like the state of this chaplain that came, it kind of brought kind of balanced out the emotion in the room, but I only kind of noticed that in hindsight. So I started volunteering at one of the local hospitals, and then it was just really, I couldn't stop thinking about, I would like to be that for other people, to go and try to be a comforter to people, and to serve them and care for them. So I really wanted to get into a chaplaincy program, but you don't make money really being a chaplain. You get paid, but that's not what you go into if you want to be rich being a chaplain. I was in the medical field, and one thing led to another where I lost my job doing prosthetics, and so I went straight into chaplaincy. At the last minute, I put in an application. So all these doors just started opening for me. Everything fell into place. I did an internship, and you're supposed to usually have to wait a long time before you can do a residency. I went straight into a residency where I got paid to be there, and then the university in North Carolina offered me a position. So since I had no idea what was going to happen, and as I kind of reflect on it now, I was like, wow, I never doubted. Things could have gone really bad for my family and I. If all that didn't fall into place, we would have been in really bad shape. So I was like, that was, alhamdulillah, my wife and my family are super supportive to whatever you think is the right thing, you go do it. Because I felt like I was doing that for the right reason. And sure enough, Allah has opened a lot of doors for me to be able to be on a college campus now and serve younger people who are really wrestling with, as I say, a lot of the things that are waiting for them out in this world. They're away from home, they're at college, and there's no one there to maybe remind them of their higher self, or and they don't have any boundaries. So to be there and be a support for people wrestling with figuring out their identities and how they're going to choose to live their life is beautiful for me, because I know personally it's a struggle to balance growing up in this society and being honest to your faith. You know, it's not an easy thing.
So we're going to take questions just in a moment. I know a lot of you have. He's brought up a lot of issues, you know, from his own awakening shock with the passing of his two children. May Allah make them your forerunners to paradise. And you know, with his grandfather teaching him, you have to understand where he's come. I mean, this is not supposed to happen, right? And what are the odds that someone from Jackson, Mississippi would end up, you know, being Muslim, not just Muslim, but being an Imam? Well, I mean, what are the odds? As you see, so there's a lot of questions I'm sure that we have. I just wanted you to say a few words before we open up to our brothers and sisters about your work with the American Melody Project and your work as a vocalist and as a poet, a songwriter. How does that intersect with your chaplaincy work and, you know, your work as an associate imam and, you know, working with young people on the campus? Is it connected in any way, or is it a separate silo of your life?
It's interesting because I don't think about my life like that. It's just my life, right? But you know, I've definitely been into music for a long time, and kind of played around with different expressions of that being Muslim, and trying to figure out what's okay to do, what's not okay to do. But I've never really been to a lot of mawlids. I've never thought, well, I'm anti-mawlid or pro-mawlid. I just haven't been to a lot of mawlids. And I went to a mawlid recently, and there were some beautiful, beautiful speeches where I learned a lot about the life and the character of the Prophet, peace be upon him. And I was inspired to go and try to practice that, not just talk about that. Sheikh Hassan Lacha from Taisir City was in Kiri, and he gave a beautiful speech, and Imam Manzur al-Islam. And there was some beautiful poetry and some beautiful song, but I didn't understand it because it was in Urdu. But I knew it was profound because there were a lot of grown men crying their eyes out, you know. So I knew it must be very powerful and very touching. And there was another person beside me from Virginia, another white convert, and we were both just kind of scratching our heads and looking at each other. So I think the song that Imam Suhaib at Princeton invited me to come and sing last night, I think this is just what appreciation to Allah for sending the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. This is just what it sounds like when it comes out of someone from my background, you know, because I didn't realize it, but in Mississippi, I think just by osmosis, you're influenced by, there's blues and there's gospel music and country music, and I've never really been into all these types of music, but just when being overwhelmed with gratitude and overwhelmed for a longing to get to be with the Prophet, peace be upon him, when that just came out in a song that sounded a certain way. And I'll share a line. I'll share some of this with you. So I'm just going to read it to you. So, Good Lord, you sent him to guide us along. Begging you to bless him, we sing our songs. To break through the clouds, you sent a light, to be the perfect beacon to guide us to right. If I never get to see your face, your footsteps I will still retrace. If I stumble, I'll stand and try to take flight, drawn like a moth to your prophet's light. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Folks don't know themselves and think they know me, but my heart holds a secret that eyes can't see. Any beauty in my action, any beauty in my speech, is modeled on your mercy to the world with my ego at his feet. If I never get to see your face, your footsteps I will still retrace. If I stumble, I'll stand and try to take flight, drawn like a moth to your prophet's light. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Lord, please bring us through these tears and pain, so when we look back on life, it's not in vain. Let us go like lightning over that bridge, onto the garden where forever we'll live. And we'll finally get to see his face, and a sweet drink from his pool we'll taste. And we'll never feel alone again, held like a babe in the love of the friend. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So I think there's a lot of things here that intersect dealing with young people. And part of this is being able to be quiet enough inside. Like when the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he would talk to people, he wouldn't look over. When someone called him, he would turn and face that person and give that person his undivided attention. And we have kids here, but we know the story of a young man that came to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and wanted permission to do something that was inappropriate. And he didn't get chewed out and yelled at. He got heard out, and then, he was listened to. He was given the space, and then he was invited to reflect on that. Is that something that, would you want that to happen to your sister or your mother? So to extend that mercy to young people and give them the space and really hear them. Sometimes the answer and the correction will kind of come from within their own heart, because your ego's not pushing on them, they're not pushing back on you. But that's easy to say, But and I just think the point of why I brought that up, Lord, bring us through these tears and pain, so when we look back on our life, it's not in vain, and we'll never feel alone again, held like a babe in the love of the friend. Just helping give people words to what they're feeling is very powerful, very healing for people. Sometimes in chaplaincy, they would say, name it and tame it. Instead of jumping on somebody's case, having an open mind and open heart and letting them express themselves and get this off their chest. A lot of times that's where the solution and the healing lies for that person, not you telling them, well, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. And it's not that we try to change what's right and wrong, but kind of seeing it's looking a few steps down the road. It's chess, not checkers, And I guess ultimately knowing that Allah is in control of the person, right? So
that poem is very beautiful. Isn't that beautiful?
very, very, very.
So just one last question. In your own upbringing, you talked to us about how you came from being in a very racist subculture, right, to embracing Islam. And your wife is from Indonesia?
Right.
Yeah, his wife is from Indonesia. And Muslims around the world, and people around the world of other religions are still challenged with racism, tribalism, nationalism. This is at the root of a lot of the conflict,
right,
that we have in the world today, from Turkey and Syria with the Kurds, to Myanmar and the Rohingya and the streets of Charleston, South Carolina, and
Right.
Chicago. So how do you, is there anything that from your own journey that you can share with us that would you think will help people in general, and Muslims in particular, transcend the racism, tribalism, nationalism that many of us have inherited, from our environments, from our cultures?
It's an easy question. Right? Yeah. I don't know if it's okay to say this or not, but I think when I started doing more salawats on the Prophet, peace be upon him, I think I started seeing things getting unstuck, being appreciative. I think it really kind of helped me connect more to God. But I think very recently I started getting it through my head, like, yeah, we want to change the entire world, but to be realistic, our influence only goes so far. So dialing it back in, like I was trying to do Southern Hospitality Islamic Center online and do like online classes and stuff. And then I realized there's a small group of people around me. I need to focus on being with those people and serving those people and helping those people navigate and grow as people. Because a lot of these people are white people, and they're wrestling with their own issues from being socialized a certain way. So me having a commitment to trying to be brutally honest with myself and seeing where my knee-jerk reactions are coming from. Is there still prejudice and racism inside me that needs to be uprooted and addressed? Not thinking I've moved beyond all that. Being watchful over myself, first of all, not letting myself off the hook and thinking I've gotten somewhere, but modeling the behavior for the people in your immediate area. If people did that, then the whole world would change. But and it doesn't mean that we don't pray for people struggling in different parts of the world, but it seems like kind of dialing it in onto the people you have the most direct impact on. And a lot of that's going to be my white sons too. They're being raised in a totally different environment than I was. So that's I think a contribution. And then speaking out against injustice, because and especially as a white person, you have to deal with, well, is this a white savior complex? Is it white guilt? What it is Allah put my soul in this body, and I'm having to navigate my life, but what it boils down to is there's right and there's wrong. So if something's wrong, you need to say something about it. And so I'm still learning how to navigate that, but I think it really boils down to there's a heartful and prophetic way to interact with humans, and then there's not. So you don't have to bring up a lot of these other things that can get people sidetracked with race and everything. Just boil it down to, as dealing with other white people especially, are you honoring your fitra? Are you honoring the way that Allah made you? Are you being true to your own soul? Because to carry some of this baggage of racism and prejudice, I think you have to betray your soul. So you don't feel at ease within yourself, because you're not being true to who you are at your deepest level. So if anybody can ever even get a glimpse of that self, to try to nurture that connection, whether it's you're taking people out on hikes in nature or whatever it is to plug into that, I think it's worth investing in, giving your whole life for, actually. So that's what I'm aspiring to, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
So we're going to open up to your questions and comments. Inshallah, there's a microphone here. And we ask, just so that everyone can get their comments and questions in, we ask that you keep your questions to the point. If you want to make a comment, that's fine, right? But no khutbahs, inshallah ta'ala. We're very happy to have you, and we hope you come back and visit us again.
Yes, sir.
And
Thank you.
I haven't told Imam Shade this before, but I really, from the bottom of my heart, believe that the work he's doing is some of the most important work in the country. He's not speaking at RIS, he's not speaking at ICNA or ISNA, right? But if you listen carefully, the work he's doing among the few people in his city, if more people were doing that, it would really change our community, improve our community for the better.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Just a question about child, youth, their thinking. You talked about how people, when they struggle, how do you give them advice and how do they take that back and, try to solve their problems? So this week I was sad to attend a funeral. A 21-year-old child hung himself in his own bedroom in a closet and took his life, right? That happened Super Bowl night, all the parents away.
Right.
It's very sad. The kids goes to university, studying neuroscience. A lot of pressure, right? From a college perspective, as a student, as a son, and the community. We have certain expectation. You go to university, do your best. And I bring my own kids here on Saturday, and I was thinking last night that they go through school the whole week. Then they take music lessons. They play sports, and then Friday night all they're doing is studying for exam for Saturday school. And then they come here, right? Then we talk about what to do, what not to do, how to be a better Muslim. So all these things builds up on kids. At some point, I'm just thinking, what are some of these, from chaplain perspective, we're putting so much pressure on the kids, and just thinking about reflecting what happened to this child who may have a, mental challenges, and that has on all of us. We have some sort of mental challenges in all of us, whether we agree, disagree, or whether we believe it or not. So what's your advice, when you're saying, when people come to you with a problem, or, students are coming, how as a parents we should think about it? Because especially the young kids that are, now that we're raising them. I don't know whether I'm asking my question clearly to you or not, but I just, gave you some frame of content to provide some, like specifically around kids that are coming here Saturday school, as parents, how do we guide them through all those pressures?
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of what comes along with the modern world. It seems like the university I'm at, the people using counseling services has gone up like 33% since last year. And it's mostly upper middle class white people. So it's not just Muslims, of course, that have pressure to succeed. But what really struck me about what you said is the young man that he lost his life to suicide. So I think if we start framing it like that, he lost his life to suicide. Like saying he committed suicide is really put in, I don't think you said it that way, but most people think of it that way, like we're passing a moral judgment on this person. For you to take your own life, you're in a very bad mental psychological state. So I think we have a stigma against accepting mental health treatment, because if you're not going to try to take out your own appendix, but if you're suffering emotionally and psychologically, a lot of us don't even think it's an option to go seek treatment, because not everything is, your faith isn't strong enough or you're possessed. Some people have imbalances, chemical imbalances that they need medication for. So I think, and just coming from my background, my socioeconomic class, being from a poor white background, going and talking to a therapist is not an option. It's a cop-out. It's seen as you're not being a man if you do that, and you don't have the resources to do that. So, especially in the community where there are some resources to help people. I think that's probably a good first step to us to. We can't ignore all these problems and they're going to go away. Especially people are losing. We're losing young people over this too. But yeah, how do you not want the best for your kids? I mean, just discussing this with my wife too. Like she's talking about, is my wife watching this? Where are you going to show this? But yeah, I was telling my kids, yeah, you could go to college. You could also go learn how to be a plumber or an electrician or work on cars, and you can make a lot of money. You could go to trade school, so maybe having a discussion, maybe if mom and dad are on board that, first of all, we want this person we want Allah to be pleased with this person. I mean, does it, yeah, if you're a doctor or a lawyer and Allah's not pleased with you, is that really being successful anyway? I mean, we're looking through the microscope and the telescope. So to toggle, same thing with navigating losing my children. If you look at it in the little picture, it's painful. You look at it at the big picture, 2 of my children will be in paradise, you know. So toggling between, there's this life and then there's another life, you know. But that's a tough one. That's a tough one. Seems like you have to confront a lot of your own baggage before you can get peaceful enough to really help other people. It's hard to give people what you don't have. So, and a lot of us, we're carrying the unfinished business of the people that went before us, you know. So that's a complicated one, but it's not stigmatizing mental health, I think would probably be very helpful to our community.
Yes. We have unfortunately. Oh, sure. Unfortunately, in the last 4 years, we have lost 2 people in their 20s to suicide in my family. And we come from very, Pakistani background. This is something unheard of back home. The common thread seems to be distance from, physical distance from masjid, as well as, probably a spiritual. I am not passing judgment, but certainly physical distance, which you can observe. Is that something that you see a correlation in your work or not? In all communities, not just Muslim.
Physical distance from the masjid?
Masjid, churches,
Maybe
I'm not
also,
passing big. Spiritually, I can't say. Nobody can say.
Yeah, maybe it's also like what's going on in the masjid. Like, is the masjid building the people up and giving them tools to navigate life? Like, because we have people, they have volumes of books memorized, but not how many people can operationalize that to use our tradition to help you flourish and navigate your life. So I think depends on who you have to help guide your community. And if you're going to have a board, have an imam, and the board tells the imam what he can and can't do, I mean, you're setting yourself up for, it's a very limiting situation. But yes, probably what kind of leadership's in the masjid too? Are you beating people over the head with the Quran? Or are you trying to rise people up? So you would know more than me, but I mean, definitely if you don't have a connection to God, something's always going to be wrong. You can't drink enough, you can't smoke enough, you can't have a big enough house to make yourself feel at ease. And that's just, I'm an American person. No one would look at me funny. I'm not from the same background, so no one would look at me funny if I drink or if I do anything. I could do any of that I want to, and my family, it would be normal to my family. But for some people, there's a blessing in having the freedom to find that out the hard way. Some people go to God quick. Some people go on bloody knees. So I've learned the hard way that there's no amount of alcohol you can drink to give you a clear conscience and to feel connected to what's bigger than you. So for people that nurture that, that's invaluable. So it's rare to see people prioritize that, I think, in communities like this, and that's part of why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, because I don't find that many people trying to nurture that connection, that speak the language of the people of this country and the younger people. So it's rare. I think it's rare. Someone that was plugged into tradition and also understands the lay of the land. It's extremely rare to find from my experience.
Assalamu alaikum. So it's interesting, and my question's following what is being asked. Right before your talk, we had Saturday school, and so one of the things that we hope to instill in the children that attend Saturday school is an identity as to what it means to be Muslim, and to be able to allow them to address the questions that will come up when they move further, say, into college, into life. So along those lines, what have you seen? What do you believe are the questions that we should be answering for our children, so that they are prepared when they do get into, you know, more liberal institutions and away from their family, that they are kept safe?
I'm gonna let him answer that, but I would think part of it is, you know, part of it is listening to them. Like, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth is really hard for me to do. A lot of times I have a lot of preconceived notions about what this person needs to hear and what they don't need to hear. And I can't put my agenda to the side long enough to connect with a person, to make them feel comfortable about what's on their mind, because there are probably a lot of things we need to discuss. There's obviously a lot of things we need to discuss, but my son may have been offered drugs at school. But if I'm getting on his case about spilling the milk every time he pours it or whatever, he's going to be scared to share that with me, to be able to confide in me. So I think that's part of what I'm trying to focus on now, to build a relationship where my son feels safe enough to talk to me about what he's dealing with, and then we could take it from there. But I'm not in a situation where I have a community of people that I'm interacting with. I kind of have a very limited, it's kind of limited to my kids. And, you know, college age kids is a different story, but.
Bismillah. What I would add to what Imam Shane said, and I think, especially for our young people who are aged 14 and above, that's really the most important thing, is listening to them, giving them space, lending them our ears and our hearts, so that they feel like they can freely express their dreams, their fears, their concerns. We don't do that enough. And when I say we, I don't mean Muslims, I mean adults around the world. We don't do that enough. And what puts us in a very uniquely advantaged position, we're in a privileged position because we have this rich tradition that teaches us to do that very thing. You know, many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the saying attributed to Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib, Allah be pleased with him, regarding how to raise children. Right? Play with them for 7 years. Instill discipline in them for 7 years. And then be their friend for 7 years. And then let the reins go. First 7 years, play with them. And you're not just playing. Playing, you're building trust. You're teaching them boundaries. I mean, there are books that psychologists have written about the importance of play. It's a very serious thing. It's not just something the mother should do. It's not just something that the child should do with their siblings. You as a parent, a father and a mother, you need to play with your infant, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old. You need to play with them. And then from 7 to 14, that's the age to instill discipline. That's the age for academic rigor. That's the age where you should be pouring all the good things that you have learned and, you know, from your own life and you've received from your own heritage into your children. That's when they're ready, you know, to absorb that. That's when we should really be giving them the spiritual intelligence, moral intelligence, and the social intelligence that will carry them through their adolescent years. If we do our job in those first 14 years, then preparing them for college is easy. It's a lot easier. Yeah, and one of the problems. One of the problems that, you know, and I used to teach Islamic at a few Islamic schools in the past, and some of our graduates would come back and tell us, you know, they go to college and they come back to visit, and one of the things that they said almost without fail was they didn't feel prepared to go to the institutions you're talking about. They didn't feel prepared to go to college or to the university And preparing them is a lot more than them, acing the MCAT or the LSAT or the GRE. It's more than them, getting advanced placement. Preparing them means giving them the intellectual, the social, the moral skills and experience that they need to navigate those new relationships and environment with confidence, and a connection with Allah Ta'ala, with God, and with the community as well. And I think the distance you're talking about that you saw in your those two very sad stories, it really speaks about the isolation and alienation that people feel. And the thing about it is a person can come to the masjid, come to the mosque, and be active and still feel isolated, still feel alienated. And this, we have a lot of youth like this. They come to the masjid, they come to the building, but they don't feel connected.
The masjids are failing them probably.
Yeah, we have to do a better job. I mean, there's the masjid's a part of it, but there are a few pieces of the puzzle. But we in our Islamic school curriculums, whether it's full-time Islamic schools or weekend schools or after-school programs, we have to really look in the mirror and be willing to face our deficiencies. We have to look at the product, and look at the deficiencies, and the things that we're doing right, we should say, Alhamdulillah, at least we got this right. But the things we're not, hitting the bullseye on, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, look, we were losing, not just losing people, we're not just losing faithful, we're losing human lives. And I could, where's the brother? I think he might, I know just brilliant students committed suicide, Muslims, over the years, So this is a trend now that we really have to take seriously, and the masjid, the weekend school, the homes, the parents, we all, play a part, inshallah.
You just made me think of something real quick that Sheikh Mendez is telling us about, the value of these stages, playing and teaching them. I think, part of it is a lot of us weren't raised that way, right? So I was not. It's an uphill battle to do that, right? But just we need to keep trying. Like you were saying, hold yourself accountable. Look at what you're doing, but don't give up on yourself that you can do that you can break out of that pattern of the way maybe we were raised that was less than ideal. And ask, we need to keep asking Allah to help us, and give, you can break out of that gravitational pull of the way you were raised, I think, and model some better behavior. Because you have the knowledge, now it's about putting it into action. But if we're not paying attention to what we're doing and we're not struggling, we're not calling out for help, it can be overwhelming, you can get down on yourself too, but we need to be, like Allah's merciful, we're part of Allah's creation too. We need to cut ourselves some slack too, but not let ourselves off of the hook at the same time. But that's what I'm trying to do,
Can I share a funny story?
Please.
What kind of funny? We were recently on Umrah. We went to Mecca for the minor pilgrimage, and we took about 50 people with us. And I would say, how many? Maybe half of the group were young people. They were youth. Yeah, about 50%. So we had about 20 or so young people, right, with us. And one night we were in Medina, and I told the organizers, look, I just want me and the young people, we're going to talk, we're just going to hang out, right, in Medina. So we're outside the masjid, Nabawi. We're outside Prophet Muhammad's mosque, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're just sitting in a circle, just talking, right? And the young people were asking really deep questions, about evolution and, the meaning of life and, existential questions, questions about faith and Iman. And we were having a really good discussion, atheism and agnosticism. And there was a brother who was praying, maybe, I don't know, 6-7 feet away from us. Right? He was offering his prayers. And then when he finished, he scolded us. He scolded us, and he said, if you're in Medina, the only thing you should do is pray and read Quran. This is not a place to play. And that's what he told us. So in his mind, we were playing around. Maybe because the youth were smiling, maybe because they were laughing, I don't know. And he didn't know us, complete stranger. Complete stranger. And we did a lot of things during the 8-9 days we were together. We made Umrah twice. The young people, they made Umrah twice. And we went to the sacred sites in Mecca and Medina. We went to the Mountain of Light, and we went to the Cave of Thor, where the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Allah be pleased with him, made Hijrah. We went to many sacred sites, and they would go to the masjid and early and spend time in the Rawdah, right? The Prophet ﷺ in the meadow, the heavenly meadow. But for many of the youth, one of the highlights of the trip was that time we spent just talking at the Prophet's masjid. And I think we really have to, in our masajid, in our homes, it's really imperative that we listen. We listen to the young people, hear them out. It doesn't mean you have to be a pushover. It doesn't mean you give up, your moral standing on what is right and wrong. But there's a way to do it that uplifts people and doesn't suffocate them. Yeah, but the thing is, we're recording, and we need everyone to hear you. Hear your question. Yes, sir.
I just want to say something. What I notice is that the parents never compliment their children. You have to, if you see your children doing something good, it doesn't matter if the child is 30 years old, 35 years old, the parents should compliment the child and say, you know what, you did something good, and I'm very proud of it. I'm just giving it as an example. A mother of 2 kids, my son almost 38, and every time I would see there was always conflict going on. So the last time I came, very peaceful, no conflict, and I complimented him. I told him, Beta, there's a big difference I see in you. And then because he's going out with a certain girl, I would say that girl always saw he had so many problems, and said, you know what, we have to go for counseling. So our people don't go for counseling and therapy. They're afraid of these things. It's like a stigma. Oh my God, somebody will find out something that I went for counseling or for some kind of a therapy. And then my son thanked me. He said, Mom, thanks a lot. At least I'm glad you noticed this. And he told me himself that I'm in therapy because of this. So we have to compliment your children. Until the children want to hear that from their parents, that you're doing something good and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. I'm going to repeat that. So Sister Shaista just emphasized the importance of us complimenting our children,
Yes.
giving positive reinforcement, and if they are going through mental stress, mental illness, then we need to encourage them, right,
We need to encourage
to
them.
get counseling or therapy and remove the stigma, as Imam Sheikh has been saying, so that we can have a healthy community, body, mind, and soul. Thank you. So, we are nearing the end, and I don't want to take too much. He's been out all day almost, and had a late night. Brother
I
Tikhan?
just have a quick question. Do you feel any pressure being lonely, you know?
What's
Yeah.
that?
Do you feel any pressure being away from your family, you know, the society you grew up in? Is it a lot of pressure, or is it normal?
So the question for the
We gotta hear
recording
the,
was whether Imam Shane feels lonely or estranged, you know, from your community, the community that you grew up in. Being Muslim and, you know, being an Imam.
grew up in.
Jackson, Mississippi.
Not really, you know, I've been in North Carolina for about 15 years now, and you know, when I went back to Mississippi, Mississippi has changed a lot in 15 years too. It's a lot more diverse and seems a lot more open, but of course I miss this is being recorded. Of course I miss being away from the family, you know, but I think part of what maybe highlights the gravity of this conversation is a lot of my family is gone now. They've passed away, so I don't have the same roots that I did in Mississippi, because a lot of these people are gone. So so I think we're looking more toward the future, you know,
Yep.
than the past. But I feel it's easy to feel estranged within the Muslim community, you know. So that's part of why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, and it's also part of the reason I try to still stay engaged with the masjid, you know, regardless of if I have a bad experience. My wife always encourages this too, like, you know, that's Allah's house. We want to go be in the house of Allah. So respond with what's better. It's what I've tried to model for some of the younger people too. Yeah, someone may say something out of line to you. You didn't tell the person mind your own business when they told you don't play around,
So
right?
thank you.
So
We said thank you.
So,
Yeah.
you know, had people when I've said something inappropriate, luckily I've had people with bigger hearts model the right way to deal with people. So even though sometimes I can feel a little awkwardness with the community, I still try to go engage, because I feel like it grows you as a person. You know, we kind of scrub each other clean, you know. So.
Mashallah. Thank you, Imam Shane, for your time and
Yes, sir. Thank you for
coming to visit us, and thank all of you for being such a wonderful audience. We're going to close, and I just wanted to say that, you know, just speaking about youth, Mansour, you know, touched on this a bit. I think it's really important to, at a certain point, you know, we need to develop rites of passage and initiation into adulthood programs. Like we used to have. We had these programs for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And many of them were dismantled after colonialism, right? Because, you know, they didn't fit into the new economic system. But in those days, and here in the United States, you still have remnants of it, like with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You know, when you become an Eagle Scout, for instance, it's still part of that. They leave you in the forest for a whole day by yourself, right? It's part of becoming a man, right? Part of becoming a woman, and having these kind of programs built in to our masajids and our Islamic centers is really important. I think that one of the things that's missing for a lot of young people, and maybe for a lot of adults as well, right? Older adults, is when you've been through challenges, you've been through something that really you had to tap into, you know, something beyond you, something greater than you, in order to overcome. At the end of that journey, when you reach the finish line, when you cross the finish line, there was another man looking into your eyes saying, you're a man now. There was another woman looking into the sister's eyes saying, you're a woman now, and we accept you as a man, we accept you as a woman, and we treat you as such now, and we expect that from you now. What we get what we actually get is the opposite. We have young people who are in their 30s now, mid-30s, 40s, who've been through insurmountable challenges, and they're still told, you're a kid. You're a kid. What does that do to a person? Right? And what do they have to do to earn the respect of the community? Right? You know, so I think we have to change some of these habits and really look back at our past, because this is not what our ancestors did. It's not what they did. You know? Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. We're going to close. We ask you to close this with a prayer. Inshallah. So can we give Imam Shane a round of applause?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya Allah, please bless all the members of this community. Please reward them for the sacrifices and the dedication they've shown establishing these programs and building their new masjid. May the new masjid be a source of light and guidance for all these people and all the communities surrounding this area. Please bless us with patience. Bless us with the determination to put pleasing you, being in your good favor at the top of our priorities, and give us success in this life and the next. Amen.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.